Chris Metzen on the World Soul Saga.
I didn't think Zerglings, morphing into orcs would work, but
Zerglings?
I didn't either.
it's been a privilege working on Zerglings.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Scott Johnson, the host of the World of Warcraft podcast, The Instance, and today I'm sitting here with Chris Metzen. Chris?
Cool.
Scott, it's good to see you, man.
Good to see you. How you feeling?
I'm feeling pretty good. It's a crazy time. We're about to
So
launch
sick
the
having
War
Chris
Within
back.
And, really kick off this massive World Soul Saga, which is a trip because, I haven't shipped a video game in, 8 or 9 years. So,
So sick.
It's kind of wild going through this process again and just kind of feeling that anticipation, excited to see what people think. And when the product finally gets into people's hands, it's
Getting
It's one
excited.
of my favorite parts of the whole
He's a G,
development
yeah.
process.
Well, let me ask you this question, because you reminded me of how long this has been going. I remember firing up the World of Warcraft OG vanilla World of Warcraft and seeing a trailer that said, celebrating 10 years of Warcraft. And I remember
And
then
now-
thinking, you gotta be kidding me, that's insane. That's how long I've been playing these games. And now we're 20 years on top
20
of that, 30
years.
years total. That has to be a little overwhelming, especially given that you were here for most of that, had a bit of a break, now you're back.
Dude, 20 years since vanilla. That is... Wow.
Does that weigh on you? Do you feel the heat from the time? Like, how do you feel about how that entire process has gone?
I don't feel kind of heat or like the weight of time, relative to expectation. It's really weird, being a little older, a little wiser. Feels like 100 years ago, feels like 5 minutes ago. all at
True,
the same
actually.
time.
Yeah.
So when I look at this World Soul Saga, the stuff we're building right now, thankfully there's an immediacy of it all to me. It's just, we live and die by, how good, the things we're sculpting in real time is. Trying to hold it all in your head, the weight of the past, it's kind of beyond me. I can't really wrap my
It's
head
really
around
surreal
like, all
time.
the history all at once. I mean, there's kids graduating college right now named Jaina and Anduin. It's like, what?
Wait. Oh, man. People actually do that, though? Oh, dude, oh, man, you don't do that, man. You don't name your kid, like, Anduin. Oh, my lord. Okay, I get it with your pets, okay? Like, you're a dog or a cat or something. But your child... Oh, man. Anduin, it's a cool name, yeah, but... I don't know. With animals, I get it though. I definitely get it with that. If you're like a really big WoW fan or something, then yeah. My son is named Thrall. Dude, the thing is, I can't even tell if you're serious. Okay, Smithers? Because I know you're like 70 years old.
Find it's not all that helpful to overdwell on, in the course of development. You want to keep it focused on what you're doing at the time. So that's how I try and balance it out. One day I'm sure I'll look back and go, wow. Working on this game again has really given me more of an immediate sense of gratification.
Cool.
That just kind of keeps you focused in the
zones look
moments.
good.
And that's generally, where my head is at on a day-to-day basis.
When you mentioned people naming their kids after characters that you created, that you named, and that you developed and saw grow and evolve and everything. Something that's interesting about War Within so far, to me, is we're seeing the gang kind of back together in a much more complete way. So you're seeing Anduin talking to Thrall with Jaina nearby, and Khadgar, my favorite worst wizard of all time, but I love him. He's there. They're all there. Yeah. And what that tells me is that we're in for some coming together of a lot of strings, a lot of stuff that has been out there for 20 years that will finally converge in some meaningful ways. Do you want to speak to that a little bit?
I'll break it down. When I came back, I'm like, all right, let's go. World of Warcraft. Like, what do we got? What are we making?
What do we got, he says.
And they were in, they had already been doing War Within, or what would become, War Within, for about 10 months. While I liked what they were building and thought it was a cool next chapter in WoW, in my head, I'm like, for the 20th anniversary of WoW, like, I want to have a feeling, like whatever the product becomes, I want to have a feeling of pulling all the toys out of the toy box, right? They like older characters, the kind of macro themes that, the series has been about all these years, Titans, Old Gods, Light and Dark. I wanted to feel like the anniversary was capturing, like this kind of mix of all of the core flavors
understandable.
Ultimately proofing out that there has been this storyline all the way through, that everything kind of converges into this crescendo. And in a very real way, how the...
Wait, isn't the crescendo where the whole performance ends?
The War Within was shaping up. They're like, yeah, dude, like there's no way on Earth, right? That that's going to divert the course.
That's the peak. Yeah, isn't that, it's the peak, right? It's the crescendo is like the climax, I guess. Yeah.
Some mighty rivers. There's no way to get that done on top of what we're already in production on.
It's up to what?
So that begat this idea of a larger saga.
Descent to the peak. Okay.
Well, what if we can get there in X number of steps? What if we can build to something just ridiculous? But it might take a couple expansions to do, and somehow folks, bought in on it. Like, whoa, that's wild. Let's go. And
definitely a big thing, though. The whole
Taryn Gregory and I, Taryn's our
Soul Saga.
principal story developer. So we work together every day, and we talk a lot about like we want to involve all these epic characters, but like when they're in the scene, they eat all the oxygen, and they could just go off and solve for X. So it's this balance between including all these mega characters and then finding clever ways to get them out of the way, so that the player has maximum agency and the newer characters we're introducing have space to breathe and live.
That's good as well. I can already tell Salatath is going to be so much better than Villain the Jailer was, starting from what they actually built her up. It's just so important that like for like a villain or like for any character in a thing like this, like the Jailer, it's like he literally just spawned and it's like, okay, he did everything in WoW. I think that's why he was such like a dislikable like hero, like villain, because it's just like, okay, the Jailer, he did everything and he's the big bad dude. Like there was no real build up. I'm not like a super big WoW lore Andy, so maybe there's gonna be some dude going like, oh, Guzu, actually there was some stuff back in the day, but like it like he just appeared and he was like this big bad dude. The cool thing about Salatath is, I agree, Salatath has been there like throughout the whole story of WoW, so it's not like she's never been around, right? It's someone that's been there for a while.
Sounds like it was almost an advantage
that's cool.
to come to something that had already been started. If you'd come to the end of
the new villain, like poof,
and started from there, that's a little big. It's a bigger buy. It's like, well, wait a minute, where are we going now? We've been flying. Okay, what does that mean? What do we do? And instead, you were presented with some beginnings, and then you got to decide where those beginnings took you.
And vector it a little bit. The trick to after all these years, creative direction, which even today I don't know that I could do a thesis on, right? Creative direction is as unique as the person doing it and the chemistry of the team that you're working with. But kind of finding that balance again of having strong ideas and kind of saying like, I want to go this way, right? But the team had already been, kind of constructing this thing. So it's a mix of maximizing kind of the things that they are most passionate about, the ideas that they're kind of dug in on, and finding a way to bend everything towards a singular purpose. But
that's fair. We had 20 years of burning Legion and Lich King for the Jailer to be pulled out of Blizzard's ass and say, actually, it wasn't Arthas, it was the Jailer. And that's what sucked about it, yeah. Salatath does have a very similar vibe, yeah, with the Lich King and everything like that, so that's kind of dope.
Boosting their sense of ownership.
Like she's
so when you got
present.
up on stage at BlizzCon, it was
I remember
this. For
this.
players.
This was hype.
I can say that for myself and a lot of people that I know, and a lot of fans of the game saw this as a return to something. And I think we're coming off an excellent expansion in Dragonflight. But you got up and did something that surprised everybody, which was, we're not doing the normal, here comes the next expansion, here are the features, here's
this
the
was crazy,
in
yeah.
its basic way. We are going to do a trilogy of essentially games.
I was right there, by the way, right over there, and that was me.
You spoke a lot about bringing, tying up some loose ends, but also creating a saga that is 3 parts, at least.
This was insane.
And setting up really the next 20 years of the game, perhaps.
Announcing
That's
like
very different
3
than what
expansions.
any of you have done up to this point. Did that present unique challenges to the way you wanted to create story, the way you wanted your characters to progress, these sorts of things?
Yeah, it created all sorts of complexities. Under the hood a little bit, it's interesting in how, when I came back on the team, the development process and even the conceptualizing process, like where does the expansion take place? What are the main themes? What's the focus? Really had become much more democratized, right? And people were, had kind of found their voice in the balance of all the special teams that comprise the World of Warcraft team. They'd really built the vision of Dragonflight together. So as I came back in, woohoo, and
new stuff.
Folks going like, oh wow, how is this going to change our dynamic? In terms of being a creative director, like, will we still have a voice? Will we still have stakes in how this all shapes out? So
I think Chris got tired of seeing how poorly the IP was being treated, so he decided to come back. Yeah, I mean, that's what we're hoping, right? Like, Chris Metzen is back, a very passionate, like, Blizzard World of Warcraft guy, and, like, hopefully he's gonna steer it into a direction where, we can be like, WoW is actually back, right?
Like I was saying earlier, kind of learning that again and learning that balance again and coming in as
That's
creative
what
director.
we're hoping, right?
I'm not here to be, hyper prescriptive with everything as I might have been as a younger dude, but like really listening for the team's instincts. Like what are they responding to? What do they want to build?
Okay.
What do the artists want to make? What are they imagining in terms of that pure vision? So on top of that, the complexity of, I don't think this gives up the ghost on anything. Like, we're building 3 of these at a time.
Oh, God.
I'll say it. It's insane. It's
isn't it?
insane,
Yeah.
right? On top of the team, over a year ago, having committed to like an 8-week cadence.
Yeah.
So these folks we are moving so fast, and so the
That can also be a bad thing, right?
Guys like Taryn and I have to map
Can
out.
also be a bad thing if you're trying to, like, reach too far. It can end up being a pretty bad thing too. Can one person really save WoW? I mean, depends on how big of an influence they have, right? So, but yeah, one person can have a big influence on something happening or not happening. They make enough money. It would be good if they just hire people to handle the workload. Yeah, it can be a very bad thing trying to reach too many things within a certain quota and like getting it all done within the time frame. That can be very stupid, right?
Out where we're going, like way ahead of the caravan. Which is its own really interesting kind of work, right? Checking in.
Push them too
does this
hard.
Feel cool. Everybody hip. I want to make sure that we're building things that not only again my instinct feels are cool and fun, but that the team is proud to build and that they feel they have a voice in and can express themselves through where the story's going, what the ideas are. We're already mapping out whatever 13.1 and 13.2 and how they actually play out and connect and.
The last Titan.
It's wild, but in a way, you get to step back and see a far more cohesive vision and a far more refined idea over time. So,
Sounds cool, yeah.
And without spilling any beans, it's like, we're already talking about, the next few, post,
The next few what?
Of like 17, and it's just keeping the conveyor belt going. It's like we're loud and clear. The fans want more content. More regularly. So,
dude, people's dopamine receptors are fried. That need for constant content is crazy nowadays. It's actually insane.
Just staying ahead of that curve and making sure that everything again is of purpose and telling this much longer story. It's been a blast. The creative, the pure creative on Warcraft, for the past year and a half has been, how would I put it, over such a long span of time. I want to say it's one of the most nuclear creative phases I've seen for Warcraft. But the pace is wild, right? Like the pace is wild. And it's like I ain't 30 anymore, so we joke around all the time like, we need to start instituting, company naps in the middle of the afternoon.
I quit some games because there's always content you farm for nothing. Yeah, I think there needs to be like a fine line of like letting the content breathe and letting people experience it and have fun with it and have things matter. And then also there being enough content rolling out so like you don't feel like you're not, like you're just waiting. Right, I think that's the whole thing with Sod, where like it was kind of too slow in a way, where like, okay, there was content coming out, but like you kind of just got bored eventually, right? I miss the times when I can run around for a while with Bisgear. Yeah, like you need to like be able to like have fun with the stuff you have, right?
For the old folks, but it has been pretty amazing.
That's a great way of thinking about it. Speaking of personal connections to characters and story, somebody close.
Wait, what the heck is this? Is that a sword? There's no way he's gonna do that, right? I played from original beta test, but stopped doing Battle for Azeroth. Went back to Classic and lost interest doing BC. Played COA Ascension. Oh, I don't really know what the abbreviation is for that. I'm not sure what that is. Maybe the War Within will have my reoccurring sub. Who knows? I am hopefully optimistic. I'm a little bit optimistic about War Within. We're gonna have to see what happens with it, but like, I'm not. The lore obviously matters, but I'm not like super hyper crazy about the lore. I'll follow it like as an overall thing, but I just hope that the gameplay is fun and then that there's like enjoyable in game, right? That's what I'm definitely hopeful for. Dwarf Hunter, what's up, man?
To you, who I think is a very wise human, once said online somewhere.
Oh, it's a private server.
Chris
Oh, Ascension.
is
Oh, okay.
Anduin in some ways, kind of worn out, beaten up by a straight period of like nonstop work, right? But also on the other end of it, he's a little bit back to being Thrall again. And those two characters represent these two parts of who this person is. How much of these characters moving forward or even in the past have represented you where you were in your life? Like some people say, well, the early versions of these characters,
Varian arc, yeah,
they were so metal. Like even Tauren chieftains, they look like, you know, these metal dudes and everything.
Green Jesus.
And now they're aging, right? They're maturing. They're moving on in the world. Like you are, like everyone who's worked on this does. Like, that's time. Do you think that's a fair thing to say, that we'll see these characters change and evolve in the same way that maybe you have, and that they're kind of your avatars?
Yeah, no.
Dude, they literally have... Thrall has like gray hairs in his beard in game. Dude, like even the characters are starting to get really old now, okay? Like the characters back from Vanilla, they're old, dude. It's like Grandpa Thrall at this point.
Oh, I know where you're going. So there's kind of an A and a B there. Like the B, which is easier, is certainly we want to push these characters forward. We want to show some aging. We are currently doing that. But yeah, we talk about that a lot. There are many new characters over the arc of the saga.
My band? Why would you be?
We don't want to be just one-off. We want them to be, pals and working together to, solve these big problems. But certainly the characters that have been around a while, we're trying to kind of find a way to like capture that age up, not necessarily age out, but like, okay, so in that cinematic at BlizzCon, they went in and put like gray streaks in Thrall's hair. I'm like, oh,
it looked great.
It
looks sick though.
It's like,
it does look good.
And just Anduin, staring you down. It's like our little boys all grows up.
Dude, I remember him sitting there in Stormwind Keep, man, with his little staff, dude. Holy. Lore idea: what if Anduin found a cursed sword that led him through a series of events where he's forced to give up humanity to try and save his people? Oh shoot! And then he ends up turning into a bad guy because the sword corrupts him, Mufford. Oh shit.
You feel for him. You're supposed to feel for him.
Oh, shit. Swindle! Thank you for the 5 months, by the way. Thank you.
Which was the point. But just the idea that these characters are moving through their own continuum and progressing and moving through stuff. Like, what a trip, looking back from where we started to the point where these are fairly fully realized characters within this setting. And it's just incredibly satisfying that way to see that progression. And certainly us as storytellers, as people, as we, it's not necessarily, it is certainly getting older, but it's also just experience over time. Big life moments, becoming parents, finding love, finding your career, all these big kind of life, hurdles. It's like, I tell folks all the time, like, don't be afraid to pour yourself into this stuff. Even when you're like, oh God, will the people down the hall dig it? Will I be judged? Like, yes, probably. But the answer is you're an artist. Go get it. Right? Find your truth. Because
I shouldn't be afraid to do that, I guess. I kind of want the game to have that Warcraft feel and heavily relies on the story. Having World of Care Bears like it currently is negates this Warcraft feeling. I can agree with that. For sure. I hope that it's gonna be more like Warcraft, right? Instead of like very much like we've said a lot, right? Like with the whole Disney thing, like, oh, we all came together to save the tree. Oh, Firak's reign is finally over because we are a family now, right? Like all that is like, it's just too like, it's too much happiness and like family and joy. Like there needs to be some like raw, like, it's corny. Yeah, it's corny. All right, some Diablo energy, dude. Diablo, playing through Diablo has been insane. Like watching those cinematics and have it like, it's a whole different thing. That's why I've been so like really enjoying playing Diablo lately again. The old Metzen art was so cool. Yeah, this is sick, man. This is so sick. Can we actually lose for once? Yeah, like have people like lose, like have bad shit happen, like, you know, big lore people dying, like stuff going on, right? Like for sure, we want more of that, right? I at least I do. I can only speak for myself, right? But I would like to see more of that instead of this whole like, you know, happiness and joy and everything is great, because it's World of Warcraft, right? It's not World of Disney.
And when, you know, we're pulling from a place of like deeply personal experience.
In the War Within, we get that. Well, I hope so. I hope so.
Someone's going to feel that on the other end of the line. You know, as you're playing the game, it's like some of those themes that really matter. Whether you're a writer, quest designer, narrative folks, cinematics, you know, like the game design, you know, like everyone kind of pours themselves into their craft. And the more
true. Lore empowers the gameplay if you're a casual. As a person, like I'm not afraid to say, like I don't like, I'm not like a heavy lore Andy. I'm not like, oh my god, dude, what the heck happened, right? I don't like, you know, like that, but I still care about the story in the game I'm playing, right? Like I'm not like super into it, like crazy, like fanatically, but I enjoy a good story. If the story is good and the lore is nice, it makes me more enticed to play, right? Not that I'm like super into it, but I still enjoy like a good thorough storyline in the game I'm playing, you know? How many times have Kilthas died by now? I mean, that's kind of his thing, right? And I think most people are like that. They want like good gameplay, a nice feel of the game, and then like a good story to go along with it, right? It's like a cherry on top. You don't have to care about the lore, but the lore does affect the feel of the game. The narrative and the NPCs and the quests, raids, and dungeons are based on the story writing. Exactly. So it does matter a lot.
Genuine that is. And
yeah.
I think sometimes the more risk you take, I think you get
even to a person that doesn't read the books.
Content. I think people feel that. They feel you in it one way or another. There are many themes embedded in the World Soul Saga, evidenced by different characters, that are very pointedly things that I think today, or I'm struggling with today, for sure. But again, I think about it in terms of like, as the team's creative leader, that's not the job as much. I often think the job is like trying to learn to call them out, you know, and challenge them to kind of breathe their own experience into it, as opposed to pouring my own in. So it's a balance.
I assume that's what, over time, you have a character. We'll stick with Thrall for a minute. He's, you know, probably the most well-known of the Chris Metzen. Certainly voice him. So
until they find
somebody, like he is Thrall. Let's be honest. It's literally a self-insert. Okay.
Until they find somebody better. Maybe we'll age out of it. I don't know. We're getting there. But no, that you've breathed enough life into that character and given them enough direction over so much time that I have to think in a lot of cases they start to run on their own gas. And while I'm not asking you to tell me if there's any tragedy coming at all, we're not even suggesting it here.
I have a kill list.
Do you?
I've got like my top 12 characters. Like they're all going.
Why is Khadgar at the top?
Oh shit!
I kid. I love Khadgar.
There's no kill list.
A kill list. Yeah. No, Sylvanas can't be on that one, guys. She's way too important. Okay, like she can't do that one. Thrall villain arc. Yeah, that's true, Elith. That is very true. Like the lore does matter for him.
All right, good. But you know what I mean? You might find yourself going, well, it might be time for character X to take a character dive.
We you know, so there's no, I'm kidding, there's no kill list necessarily. But we do talk about this stuff all the time. And the only, you know, when you start talking about knocking off main characters, it's not a small thing. And usually that is in service to, in the general story you're developing, if you really need to punctuate, you know, dramatic stakes, the easiest thing to do is ask Lucas, blow up a planet, or, you know, knock off a main character.
Tyrion.
Yeah, I mean, if no one ever loses anything, it feels kind of pointless, right? Because it's like, oh, well, no matter what happens, none of the important characters they never get hurt or they never die, right? It makes the stories like less interesting, right? Because in a way, that's why, like, unironically, Game of Thrones was incredibly fun to watch, because you never knew who's gonna die? Like, maybe next episode, your favorite character is gonna get killed off, right? And then, you know, something happened, and then Game of Thrones got kind of bad, but it's just, it makes it so much more interesting to follow because everybody can, like, die, right? Instead of being like, oh, everything is happy and nice, right? The classic player base is never going to find similar fulfillment in modern versions of WoW, not because nostalgia, because it's so different in tone of gameplay. I think Warman's going to do something good on solo late because I feel it's not casual to solo, especially since the player base is kind of split. Yeah, I don't think they should. Like, I don't think this is supposed to be like a classic versus retail conversation again, but I don't think they should cater the game towards the classic player base, because the classic player base already have the games that they enjoy, right? I think retail is good for what it is, and I think it's great, and I hope that they keep working on the lore to make it interesting and intriguing, right? Because it is a great game, right? They just need to really steered in the right direction. I'm so done with having Sylvanas as the main lore character, but it seems like she's finally taking a break, but instead she just gives her place for her sister. I'm not a big fan of that either. Like, dude, this Sylvanas family, they are gonna freaking milk that family till the ends of the earth, man. Now we're finally done with Sylvanas. Oh, she has an edgy sister.
Fordling, for example.
Tyrion.
Remember that?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
I remember that.
I'm still gripping on that one.
Yeah.
Can we unpause the video? I'm sorry, I'm just yapping. I apologize. I do. I'm a WoW Andy, so I care. It's a good conversation to have. I like talking about it. Apologies. It's just I'm yapping a little bit.
No pressure, though. I'm just saying it was a rough moment.
No pressure. You know, so we do talk about it from time to time, but we try and frame it with, you know, the greatest gravity possible, and trying to be clear that, you know, this franchise has another 20 years in it. You know, it's this big ongoing idea, and losing critical characters is costly. So it's, you know, we talk about it from time to time. I won't tell you we won't lose anybody over the arc of the saga. Those types of moments are all about establishing stakes and that emotional, you know, engagement from the player ultimately. So, you know,
does it help populate the World Soul Saga as a creative place to know that over the last few years, while you were gone for much of it, the team has made a real effort or a priority out of having allied races discovered in the world that players can not only unlock
more
but then
dwarves
be and might prefer over the originals or whatever. Like, this additional diversity for choice seems like a really potent way to fill your world with more interesting characterization rather than just, well, it's orcs and humans and a few others.
Yeah. I love it. You know, just old school D&D and you know, all these options on, you know, player expression, what kind of, you know, what culture you want to be from. I love that kind of stuff. So opening that up, especially like, you know, Battle for Azeroth and, you know, the inclusion of all these new silhouettes and flavors or whatever, I thought was awesome, actually. And even the ones I didn't think I would play, I wound up, you know, I rolled a Volpera hunter, and then I consistently dress him like Robin Hood from the old Disney movie. So it's like, I actually really dig a lot of the flavors that have been added over time. Like, it's, in my opinion, the water's warm, everybody in the pool, you know, I think WoW can stretch and grow to, you know, encapsulate all of these flavors. I think giving, you know, players more options, more visual options is awesome. At the end of the day, I think, you know, erring on the side of, you know, player choice, player agency is the right move. Like, why you're playing this game in the first place, right? When you imprint, especially when it's your character, when you imprint on a look or a vibe or, you know, like a vision that you connect with, it's like, go get it.
So let's bring it full circle to what is imminent, which is the war within. Players have a lot of expectations. Some of it is based on just excitement because there is a 3-part saga coming.
That's pretty big.
Not used to that. There's a whole new structure to this. So what would you say to players who are pins and needles about this next expansion, the start of the big grand
A lot of people on the fence, I think.
As we were talking about earlier, we've never been in a situation where we've shaped the whole giddy up, you know, all at once. So there's the adventure component of the War Within, and then there's the max level campaign, and then there's the, you know, the subsequent patches, and it's all been designed to kind of play out over time. You know, narrative threads and sinews, kind of, you know, linking everything together. It's, personally, a little biased, but I think it's off the hook, right? At the end of the day, I would want people to remember it is still only, however, part one of a much, you know, a much larger narrative. And I would want people to look at it that way. You know, it's meant to rise and, you know, crescendo with its own max level campaign.
Will I be expected to walk in Quest 1 and yank the sword from the planet?
Oh, that's an interesting one. I would say to that.
Oh, the sword.
I'm glad you brought that up. Actually, the sword, the resolution of the sword that we started with at BlizzCon, actually, that's a 13 thing. We're going to build to that. And it's a doozy.
One does not simply yank a sword from Azeroth.
I would even say you are not prepared for that moment.
Did he just say that?
And leave it at that. But it is a 13 issue.
That is a very big wording. That's that word. Okay, Illidan is coming back. Okay, Stirnak, thank you for the 15 months, because Illidan is like with Sargeras, right? And that is Sargeras' sword.
Ultimately, you know, things like Xalatath, we've been doing a lot of work to kind of build her up as a very different kind of villain.
She is kind of cool, though.
She is not like a Deathwing type, you know, villain where, you know, just he's flying and burning everything and like, oh crap, you know, we're gonna, you know, like, clearly he's where the storyline ends. She's built.
Dude, I think I prefer these kind of villains to like oh, I'm the big baddie, I kill everything, right? Like I think like those kind of that kind of shit is cool.
In such a way that like
You can't fix her, chat.
Be confronted by her and face her multiple times over the arc of the saga. So it's not going to be this, you know, one and done type like, oh, you know, she's the raid boss. You know, she's meant to, you know, kind of weave in and out of events over time. So that's something I would say. But definitely the sword thing sticks in my head. You know, like certain of these themes are built to play out over time. So I hope people are into that. I hope they're into, you know, a longer form engagement. Because in a way, you know, so many of our expectations kind of, you know, crystallize around like, well, wait a minute, I didn't get the full meal I was expecting in 11.0. It's not built to be that. It's built to be part one. So buckle up. You know, the ride will be, I hope, insane and insanely fulfilling. Going back to that promise of the 20th anniversary of World of Warcraft, like, I want this saga to feel like it is just the perfect crescendo of 20 years of storytelling, you know. As we said at BlizzCon.
Dude, he's kind of hyping it up a lot, man.
There is a sense that we are fulfilling something. The 20 years came and will end this November. I guess November's launch, right? Yeah, 20-year anniversary will be this November. Yeah. And there is a feeling, I can tell you from the player side, of really coming to something special. And I know that puts pressure on the team when players collectively have an idea that they think should happen, and then the team's like, well, we're kind of going a different way. But I don't know that I've felt this much positive feedback in a long time about just where things are headed. And nobody says that about a 20-year-old property usually. Usually we're like,
there's not a lot of precedent we have, right? Like that's the same contiguous project. There's plenty of game series run for 20 years, no question. But like, it is honestly a blessing and a, you know, often sometimes a hindrance. Just trying to, you know, sift through the sheer volume of all of these details. Poor Sean Copeland, right? You know, just trying to keep it all, you know, make it all make sense. But it is also its principal strength. You know, particularly because it's an MMO and a video game, because you've lived these moments. You didn't just passively watch. You didn't just, you know, read a book or watch a movie. You've lived these moments and they matter and there are stakes. You know, so as complex as it is to try and push the world forward without breaking everything that came before, which is its own kind of challenge. It's a very noble challenge, right? It's a privilege to tread water in this complexity of this setting. After all of these years, it's amazing that it's still the same stakes. It's still the same.
Crazy how it's still around.
There's a future I see where you're, you know, reclining in some sort of chair.
With the blanket over my knees.
Blanket over your knees, keeping you warm, and you're looking back and you're thinking.
Telling kids to stay off my lawn.
Yeah, exactly. And they're all in their haptic suits playing whatever version of WoW they have. And and looking back at Grandpa's accomplishments, and I think
God.
it looks like something to be pretty proud of.
Grandpa
already.
Chris
I,
Metzen.
for one, could not be more excited about this next expansion and the entirety of the world Soul Saga. And
Yeah.
I think you and your team should be proud, and I wish you guys nothing but luck in the next few weeks.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks so much, Scott.
This was cool to watch, actually. I like this. Oh, the long handshake.
We're never gonna get that.
Oh, dude, the long, awkward handshake. That was a cool, I mean, interview, I guess, with Chris Metzen. That was really dope to watch, man. I'm glad we decided to give this a whirl. You will be judged probably because you're an artist. Go get it, Metzen. You're not prepared for that moment. Hype intensifies. Dude, that's the main thing. Dude. Freaking Illidan, man. One of the OG content creators for WoW, Scott, and one of the OG story creators for Warcraft, Chris. Let's go. This was awesome. This was really sick, man. That hyped me up. I'm getting quite excited, dude. Oh gosh, I really hope. I really hope it's gonna be good. Like the whole World Soul Saga and everything like that. I hope so. But I guess time will tell. It does come out literally almost tomorrow. Comes out tomorrow evening, right? So, yeah. Gosh darn, man. Let me see here. Wait, did I forget to? Oh, I didn't. Okay. Don't worry, Guzu. You always have classic. I guess that's true. Classic is something we will always have.